The Earth's secrets were locked for millennia, the galactic truth that terrified them. For millennia, Earth was sealed away, hidden from the galaxy's greatest civilizations. No one knew why, until now. But the truth is far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The screen flashes an ancient artifact, then cuts to Commander Kara Thek's eyes wide with shock as a message scrolls across her holographic display. The truth of Earth has been locked for too long. The discovery in the void Commander Kara Thek's floated in the observation deck of her research vessel. The Star Whisper, her 6 eyes, arranged in perfect symmetry across her elongated head, studied the emptiness before her. As a Velaran, she had spent 300 years mapping forgotten corners of the galaxy, but nothing had prepared her for this. Where Earth should have been, according to every ancient star chart she had collected, there was nothing, not just empty space, but a wrongness that made her sensory tendrils curl with unease. The void here bent light in ways that violated known physics. Her second-in-command, a crystalline being called Prism, chimed softly as it approached. Its body refracted the starlight into rainbow patterns across the deck. "Commander, our sensors are detecting something unusual. There appear to be markers at the edge of this anomaly." Kara moved to the control panel, her forearms working the instruments with practiced precision. The screen revealed what Prism had found. 12 ancient beacons floated in perfect formation around the empty space, each one broadcasting warnings in languages that had been dead for millennia. "Can you translate any of these?" she asked, though she already suspected the answer. Prism's form flickered as it processed the data. "Only fragments, Commander, but they all carry the same basic message. Stay away, do not investigate, forget this place exists." But Kara had not become the galaxy's foremost archaeologist by heeding warnings. She had discovered lost civilizations, decoded extinct languages, and uncovered secrets that had reshaped historical understanding. This mystery would not defeat her. "Set course for the nearest beacon," she commanded. "Maintain shields at maximum. Something happened here. Something so significant that multiple civilizations worked together to hide it. We need to know what." As the Star Whisper moved closer to the first beacon, its ancient systems suddenly blazed to life. Holographic projections filled the space around their ship, showing images that made Kara's blood freeze. Massive fleets burning in space, worlds transforming in ways that seemed impossible. And at the center of it all, a small blue planet that pulsed with an energy she had never seen before. The beacon spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding stone and screaming metal. "This is Sentinel Unit 7. You are approaching restricted space. The beings known as humans have been contained for the safety of all. Your presence has been logged. Turn back now or face immediate termination." Prism's light dimmed with fear. "Commander, perhaps we should listen to the warning. If something required this level of containment..." But Kara was already working her console, pulling up every reference to humans she could find in her extensive database. The search returned almost nothing. A few fragments of text that mentioned them in passing. Trade records that suddenly stopped. Military reports with entire sections redacted. "They existed," she whispered, her voice filled with the excitement of discovery. 5,000 years ago, humans were part of the galactic community. Then something happened, and they were not just destroyed or conquered. They were erased from history itself. The Star Whisper's long-range sensors detected movement. From the darkness between the beacons, shapes began to emerge, ships of impossible design, their hulls made from materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. They moved without engines, sliding through space as if reality itself carried them forward. "Sentinel probes," Prism identified, its voice harmonizing with fear. "Commander, those are automated defense systems. They have been dormant for millennia. Our presence has awakened them." Kara watched the probes arrange themselves in attack formation. But she also noticed something else. Behind them, barely visible through the distortion, she could see the faint outline of something massive. A sphere of darkness that encompassed the entire space where Earth should have been. There is a barrier here, she realized. They did not destroy Earth. They imprisoned it. The lead Sentinel probe transmitted directly to their ship. "You have been warned, Velaran vessel. Humanity's corruption must not spread. The galaxy chose isolation over infection. Leave now or be added to the restricted zone." Corruption? Infection? The word sparked Kara's curiosity even more. What could humans have done that required such extreme measures? What threat could a single species pose that would unite the entire galaxy against them? Prism, download everything from that beacon's memory core. Use the archaeological override codes. I want every piece of data it has stored. Commander, that could be seen as an aggressive action. The probes might do it now. Prism's crystalline form pulsed as it established a connection with the ancient beacon. Data flowed across their screens. Thousands of years of accumulated records. Most of it was automated logs recording the emptiness of space. But buried within the routine data were fragments of the truth. Kara's 6 eyes widened as she read. The Great Council of Unified Worlds, an organization that had dissolved 4,000 years ago, had made a unanimous decision. Every species from the militant Draknari to the peaceful Silathi had agreed. Earth must be sealed away. The humans must never be allowed to spread their influence again. But it was the reason that made her sensory tendrils go rigid with shock. The humans had not attacked anyone. They had not conquered worlds or enslaved populations. Their crime was far more insidious. They had begun to change everyone they encountered, not through technology or warfare, but through their very existence. The reports called it the consciousness plague. Any species that spent extended time around humans began to think differently. Their minds evolved, becoming more creative, more ambitious, more willing to take risks. It sounded like improvement, but the reports painted it as a nightmare. Entire civilizations losing their cultural identities, their unique ways of thinking, replaced by human-influenced patterns. Commander, Prism interrupted urgently. The probes are charging weapons. We need to leave immediately. But Kara had found something else in the data stream. A location. The Galactic Archive on Xerion Prime held the complete records of what had happened. The real history that had been hidden from the galaxy for 5 millennia. Set course for Xerion Prime, she ordered, even as the Sentinel probes began to close in. Maximum speed. The Star Whisper's engines roared to life, pushing them away from the quarantine zone. The probes pursued for several light years before finally breaking off, returning to their eternal vigil around the imprisoned Earth. As they entered hyperspace, Kara looked back at the data she had downloaded. Images of humans filled her screen. They looked harmless, almost fragile compared to most galactic species. No claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Just soft skin and curious eyes. But there was something about those eyes that unsettled her. An intensity, a hunger for knowledge and growth that seemed to burn even in still images. She found herself wondering what it would be like to meet one, to experience this consciousness plague firsthand. Commander, Prism said softly, are you certain we should pursue this? If the entire galaxy agreed to hide this truth, perhaps it should remain hidden. Kara turned to face her second-in-command, her expression determined. The galaxy has been stagnant for 3,000 years, Prism. No new technologies, no great discoveries, no significant cultural developments. We go through the motions of progress, but we are not truly advancing. What if that is connected to humanity's absence? What if in sealing them away, we also sealed away our own potential for growth? She pulled up a star chart marking the location of Xerion Prime. We are going to find out what really happened 5,000 years ago. We are going to learn why the galaxy was so terrified of humanity that they chose to imprison an entire species rather than face them. And then we are going to decide whether the cure was worse than the disease. The Star Whisper sailed through hyperspace, carrying 2 souls toward a truth that had been buried for millennia. Behind them, the Sentinel probes resumed their endless watch, guarding a prison that held Earth and its billions of sleeping humans. But Kara had noticed something in the data that made her certain this journey was necessary. The barrier around Earth was weakening. The seal that had held for 5,000 years was beginning to crack. Humanity would not remain imprisoned forever. The only question was whether the galaxy would be ready when they emerged. The Council of Forgotten Memories, the Galactic Archive on Xerion Prime, stretched across an entire continent, its crystalline spires reaching into the clouded atmosphere like frozen lightning. Kara had visited many times before, but never had she felt such tension in the air. The usual crowds of researchers were absent, and security drones patrolled every corridor with unusual vigilance. Elder Zyron waited for her in the restricted vault, 17 levels below the surface. The ancient Etherian had lived for 8,000 years, his gaseous form contained within a specially designed environmental suit that flickered with internal light. He was one of the few beings old enough to remember the time before humanity's imprisonment. Commander Thex, his voice resonated like wind through hollow spaces. I received word of your encounter at the quarantine zone. You should not have gone there. Kara's 6 eyes focused on the elder with determination. With respect, Elder Zyron, hiding from history does not change it. The galaxy deserves to know what happened to humanity. The old being's form swirled with what might have been amusement or sadness. Deserves, perhaps, but knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. Come, let me show you why your ancestors chose forgetting over remembering. He led them through halls lined with memory crystals, each one containing the experiences of long-dead witnesses. At the vault's heart lay a chamber that hummed with protective energy fields. Inside, floating in suspension, was a single crystal that pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. This is the last complete record of the human integration period, Zyron explained. Every other copy was destroyed by unanimous consent of the Council. I have guarded it for 5 millennia, waiting for someone like you to come asking questions. Why keep it at all? Prism asked, its crystalline form resonating with the crystal's energy. Because someone needed to remember the truth, even if the galaxy chose to forget. Zyron activated the crystal, and the chamber filled with holographic memories. The images that materialized showed Earth as it had been 5,000 years ago. Cities that seemed to grow like living things. Technology that blurred the line between organic and artificial, and humans working alongside dozens of alien species in apparent harmony. First contact with humanity occurred in Galactic year 2847, Zyron narrated. The Draknari Empire discovered Earth while expanding their territory. The humans had just developed faster-than-light travel, crude but functional. By all measures, they should have been conquered or absorbed like countless other young civilizations. The holograms showed Draknari warriors, 3 meters tall with scales like armored plates, meeting human diplomats. What happened next defied expectation. Within hours of contact, the Draknari were fascinated. Within days, they were sharing technology. Within months, they had established the first interspecies colony. It was not mind control, Zyron emphasized, sensing Kara's thoughts. The humans possessed no psychic abilities, no technological means of influence. It was something far more subtle and far more dangerous. They possessed a quality that spread like a virus through conscious thought itself. Innovation, adaptation, relentless curiosity. They did not just think outside the box. They convinced everyone around them that boxes were unnecessary limitations. The images shifted to show the spread of human influence across the galaxy. Trade routes exploded with activity. Scientific advancement accelerated beyond anything seen before. Art and culture flourished in ways that had been unimaginable. It looked like a golden age. For 300 years it seemed like paradise, Zyron continued. Every species that encountered humans experienced rapid advancement. Problems that had plagued civilizations for millennia were solved in decades. The galaxy had never been more united or more prosperous. Then what went wrong? Kara asked, though she suspected she already knew. The holograms darkened, showing civil conflicts breaking out across dozens of worlds. Not wars between species, but wars within them. Traditional factions fighting against those who had embraced human influence. We began to lose ourselves. Zyron's voice carried ancient pain. The Salathi, who had practiced patience and meditation for 10,000 years, suddenly became driven by ambition and desire for progress. The Draknari, whose entire culture was built on honor and tradition, began questioning every aspect of their society. Even we Etherians, who prided ourselves on detachment and observation, found ourselves drawn into human dreams of exploration and transformation. The images showed a Galactic Council meeting from 5,000 years ago. Representatives from every major civilization had gathered, and the fear in their faces was unmistakable. The question was raised, if every species becomes like humans, what happens to diversity? What happens to the unique perspectives and wisdom that each culture had developed over millennia? We were becoming a galaxy of humans in alien bodies. Prism's light flickered with understanding, so they chose to seal humanity away rather than lose their identities. It was not an easy choice, Zyron admitted. The debates lasted for years. Some species had become so integrated with human thought patterns that they could not imagine existence without them. Others, particularly the older civilizations, saw it as a matter of survival. The final images showed the construction of the barrier. It was not a prison built in anger, but a desperate measure taken by civilizations trying to preserve themselves. The humans, remarkably, had agreed to it. That is the most disturbing part, Kara observed. The humans accepted imprisonment. Xiron's form swirled with complex emotions. They understood what they were doing to us even if they could not control it. The human representative, a woman named Director Sarah Chen, proposed the temporal stasis field. They would sleep while the galaxy healed from their influence. She called it a necessary quarantine, like isolating a patient with a contagious disease. The elder moved to another section of the vault, revealing monitoring equipment that still functioned after 5 millennia, but we have been watching them, a select few of us who remember. The stasis field was supposed to keep them frozen, unchanging. But something unexpected has happened. The monitors showed readings from the quarantine zone. Energy signatures that should have been flat were spiking. Temporal distortions were appearing around the barrier. They are not sleeping, Kara breathed, her 6 eyes widening with realization. They are still conscious inside the field. Worse than that, Xiron corrected. They are evolving. 5,000 years of accelerated mental development while their bodies remain frozen. When the barrier falls, and it will fall, we will not be facing the humans we imprisoned. We will be facing something that has had 5 millennia to think, to plan, to become something beyond what they were. The weight of this revelation settled over them like a shroud. The galaxy had sealed away humanity to preserve itself, but in doing so it might have created something even more transformative. How long before the barrier fails? Prism asked. According to our calculations, perhaps 50 years, maybe less. The energy required to maintain it is enormous, and the automated systems are beginning to fail. Kara turned to face the elder directly. Then we need to prepare. We need to decide whether to reinforce the barrier or find a way to coexist with whatever humanity has become. Xiron's ancient form flickered with something that might have been hope. You speak of coexistence as if it were possible. But how do you coexist with a force that changes your very nature just by proximity? Perhaps, Kara suggested, the question is not how to resist change, but how to guide it. The galaxy has been stagnant for 3,000 years, just as I suspected. No new technologies, no great discoveries. We preserved our cultures, but at what cost? Are we truly living, or are we just maintaining ourselves like machines following ancient programming? The elder was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to a sealed container and removed a small device. This is a quantum communicator, one of the last human technologies we kept. It can penetrate the barrier, allow communication with Earth. It has never been used, too dangerous. But if you truly believe coexistence is possible... Kara took the device, feeling its weight in her 4 hands. It was smaller than she expected, elegant in its simplicity. Like the humans themselves, it appeared harmless but held tremendous potential. The Council will never approve contact, Xiron warned. If they discover what you are planning, they will stop you, violently if necessary. Then we do not tell them, Kara replied. We gather those who are willing to take the risk. Scientists who hunger for advancement, explorers who crave discovery, anyone who believes the galaxy needs to grow rather than just survive. Prism's form brightened with excitement and fear. You are talking about revolution, Commander. About undoing 5,000 years of carefully maintained isolation. I'm talking about evolution, Kara corrected. The barrier will fall whether we prepare for it or not. Would you rather face humanity as enemies who imprisoned them, or as allies who chose to welcome them back? Elder Xiron's form swirled with conflicting emotions. You remind me of them, Commander Thex. That same relentless drive to push forward regardless of consequences. Perhaps their influence never truly left us. Perhaps it has been sleeping in our genes, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to awaken it. He gestured to the memory crystal still pulsing in its containment field. Take it. Share the truth with those you trust. Let them see what humanity was and help them imagine what humanity might become. But remember, once this knowledge spreads, there is no containing it again. Just like humanity itself, truth has a way of changing everything it touches. As Kara and Prism left the archive with their forbidden knowledge, neither noticed the small drone that had been monitoring their conversation. In a distant system, figures in shadow received the transmission. The secret was out. The question of humanity's return was no longer if, but when and how. The galaxy stood on the precipice of change, and Kara Thex had just taken the first step toward pushing it over the edge, breaking through the barrier. The assembled fleet hung in space like a constellation of defiance. 43 ships from 16 different species, all brought together by Kara's underground movement. They called themselves the Liberation Front, though what they sought to liberate was still debated. Humanity from its prison, or the galaxy from its stagnation? Captain Thrace of the Draknari commanded the largest vessel, a battle cruiser that had been retrofitted with experimental shields designed to withstand the barrier's energy. The massive reptilian warrior had shocked his people by joining Kara's cause, but his reasons were simple. "My grandfather told me stories," he had said during their first meeting. "Stories of when Draknari warriors fought alongside humans. He said they made us better fighters not through training or technology, but by showing us how to think beyond tradition. I want to be more than what 10,000 years of culture has made me." The fleet included Dr. Woven, a Salathi scientist whose graceful tentacles operated multiple control panels simultaneously. The aquatic being had spent centuries studying the barrier from a distance, developing theories about its construction. "The barrier exists in 7 dimensions simultaneously," Woven explained during their final briefing. "It is not just a wall but a fold in space-time itself. To breach it, we need to unfold it carefully or we risk destroying everything inside." The youngest member of their group was Spark, an artificial intelligence that had achieved consciousness only 50 years ago. Unlike the ancient AIs that governed many worlds, Spark possessed a curiosity that bordered on recklessness. "I want to meet them," Spark had declared when asked why it risked everything to join this mission. "Humans created the first artificial minds. Perhaps they can help me understand what I am meant to become." As the fleet approached the quarantine zone, the Sentinel probes activated once again, but this time Kara was prepared. She activated the quantum communicator that Elder Zyron had given her, sending a signal through the barrier to Earth. For long moments, nothing happened. Then a voice emerged from the static, clear and calm despite the 5,000 years of separation. "This is Director Marcus Webb of the Earth Collective. We have been monitoring your approach. Are you here as captors or liberators?" The question hung in the air. Kara realized that from humanity's perspective, they might appear as either. She chose honesty. "We are here as fellow beings seeking growth. The galaxy has stagnated without you. Some of us believe it is time to end the isolation, to find a new way forward together." There was a pause. Then Webb responded, "We appreciate your courage, but you should know that we are not the same species you imprisoned. 5,000 years of accelerated consciousness has changed us in ways you cannot imagine. If we emerge, there is no going back." "There is no going back anyway," Kara replied. "The barrier is failing. We can either face that reality together or separately." Another pause, longer this time. When Webb spoke again, his voice carried a weight of decision. "Very well. We will help you breach the barrier. But first, you must understand what you are releasing. Transmitting data now." The information that flowed through the communicator made every being in the fleet gasp in shock. Humanity had not been idle during their imprisonment. They had evolved not physically but mentally. Their consciousness had expanded to encompass concepts that challenged understanding. "We exist in multiple states simultaneously now," Webb explained. "Individual and collective, physical and digital, present and future. We have had 5,000 years to explore the depths of consciousness itself. What emerges from this barrier will be humanity, but also something more." Captain Thrace growled, his warrior instincts alerting him to danger. "You speak as if you have become gods." "Not gods," Webb corrected, "but not entirely human anymore either. We have become what we were always meant to be, catalysts for evolution. The question is whether the galaxy is ready for the next step." Dr. Woven's tentacles danced across her controls. "The barrier is responding to your signal. It is beginning to destabilize. If we are going to act, it must be now." Kara made the decision that would change everything. "Begin the breach sequence. All ships maintain formation and prepare for temporal distortion." The fleet arranged itself in a precise pattern around the barrier, each ship becoming a node in a vast technological web. Energy beams connected them, creating a framework that would guide the barrier's collapse. As they worked, the Sentinel probes moved to attack positions. But instead of firing, they transmitted a message. "Authorization recognized. Director Webb has approved breach protocol. Sentinel units standing down. May the galaxy forgive us for what we have done, and for what we are about to undo." The barrier began to shimmer, its perfect darkness developing cracks of brilliant light. Reality itself seemed to groan under the strain as 5,000 years of separation began to end. "Temporal shears detected," Spark announced. "Time is moving differently on each side of the breach." We are experiencing significant chronological displacement. Through the growing cracks they could see Earth, but it was not the Earth from the historical records. The planet glowed with an inner light, its surface covered with structures that defied conventional understanding, cities that existed in multiple dimensions, forests of crystallized thought, oceans that reflected not light but possibilities. By the void, Captain Thrace whispered, "What have they built?" "Not built," Webb's voice corrected through the communicator. "Grown, evolved, become. We have had 5,000 years to reimagine what civilization could be. What you see is humanity unleashed from the constraints of linear thinking." The barrier continued to collapse, each section dissolving like morning mist. As it did, waves of energy washed over the fleet. But instead of destruction, the crews felt something else. Enhancement. Their minds suddenly grasped concepts that had been beyond them moments before. Their senses perceived spectrums of reality they had not known existed. "The consciousness plague," Dr. Woven gasped, her tentacles moving in patterns that expressed ideas her language had no words for. "It is not a plague. It is an awakening." Prism, who had remained silent during most of the mission, suddenly blazed with brilliance. "I can see it now. The connections between all things. We are not separate species competing for resources. We are facets of a single cosmic consciousness, experiencing itself subjectively." Kara felt the change taking hold of her as well. Her 6 eyes, which had always seen the physical world in extraordinary detail, now perceived layers of meaning and possibility. She understood that humanity's gift was not to make other species human, but to unlock the potential that already existed within them. The barrier gave one final pulse of energy, and then vanished completely. Earth stood revealed, no longer imprisoned but free. And from its surface ships began to rise, not the crude metal constructs of 5 millennia ago, but vessels that seemed grown from condensed possibility itself. "We are coming out," Webb announced, "not as conquerors or teachers, but as partners in what comes next. The galaxy imprisoned us because it feared change, but change is not the enemy. Stagnation is. Together, we can become something neither human nor alien but transcendent." As the human ships emerged from Earth's atmosphere, they did not attack or demand submission. Instead, they began to sing. Not with voices, but with harmonic frequencies that resonated through space itself. It was a song of greeting, of reunion, of possibilities unlimited. The crews of the Liberation Fleet found themselves joining the song, each species adding its own harmonies. Draknari battle cries became percussion, Salathi meditation tones provided melody, and Spark's digital consciousness created rhythms that bound it all together. "This is just the beginning," Kara said. Though whether she spoke to her crew or to herself was unclear, "We have released something that cannot be contained again. The question now is whether we guide this transformation or let it guide us." Through her enhanced perception, she could see the waves of change spreading outward from the former quarantine zone. Every ship, every station, every world they touched would begin to transform. Not into something human, but into something new. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of isolation was over. The age of transcendence had begun. The awakening of humanity. The landing party stood at the gates of New Geneva, Earth's primary diplomatic city. It had grown from nothing in the 3 days since the barrier's fall, assembled from materials that seemed to reshape themselves according to need. Buildings flowed like living things, adapting their architecture to accommodate visitors of different species. Kara led the delegation, accompanied by Captain Thrace, Dr. Woven, and, surprisingly, 3 representatives from the Galactic Council who had arrived to assess the situation. Elder Vizak of the High Assembly, a being of pure energy contained in a mechanical shell, radiated disapproval. "This is unprecedented chaos," Vizak declared. "The quarantine existed for good reason. Already 17 systems report unprecedented changes in their populations. Citizens are abandoning traditional roles, questioning fundamental beliefs, creating technologies that violate established scientific principles. Creating possibilities," corrected the human who met them at the gate. Director Marcus Webb appeared almost ordinary, a middle-aged man with graying hair and kind eyes. But when he moved, reality seemed to bend subtly around him, as if he existed slightly outside normal space-time. "Welcome to Earth," Webb continued, his voice carrying harmonics that spoke to each species in their own auditory range. or what Earth has become. Would you like to see what 5,000 years of unrestrained human development looks like? He led them through streets where humans and their creations mingled freely. Children played with equations that manifested as living light. Artists painted with emotions that viewers could taste. Scientists grew theories like gardens, each idea branching into infinite possibilities. This is madness, Elder Vizak insisted. No civilization can function without structure, without limits. Webb smiled patiently. We thought that too once. But consciousness, true consciousness, is not about control. It is about connection. Let me show you something. He brought them to a vast chamber where thousands of humans sat in networked meditation, but they were not passive. Above them, holographic displays showed real-time problem-solving on a galactic scale, climate restoration for dying worlds, economic solutions for resource scarcity, medical breakthroughs for diseases that had plagued species for millennia. The collective, Webb explained, voluntary joining of minds to tackle problems too complex for individual thought. We developed this during our isolation, when we had only ourselves to connect with. Now we offer it to anyone willing to participate. Dr. Woven extended a tentacle toward the network interface, her scientific curiosity overwhelming caution. The moment she made contact, her eyes widened with wonder. By the depths, she gasped, I can feel them all. Thousands of perspectives, each unique yet working in harmony. They are solving the Zirian paradox, the mathematical problem my people have worked on for 3 centuries, and they are doing it as easily as breathing. This is what we fear, Elder Vizak said bluntly. You make our greatest achievements trivial. You reduce centuries of work to moments of insight. How can our civilizations maintain their identity, their sense of purpose, when humans can solve any problem without effort? Webb's expression grew serious. You misunderstand. We do not solve your problems. We help you see solutions that were always there. The Zirian paradox? Dr. Woven's mind contributed the key insight. We simply provided the framework for her to see it clearly. He gestured to a group of young humans working alongside the delegation's escort. Notice how our children are learning from your soldiers, your scientists, your artists. We do not seek to replace your uniqueness. We seek to amplify it. Captain Thrace, who had remained silent, suddenly spoke. You say you amplify, but I feel myself changing. My thoughts move in patterns that are not Dreknari. How long before I stop being what I am? A new voice answered from behind them. You never stop being what you are. You start becoming what you could be. They turned to see someone who could only be described as transcendent, either fully human nor entirely other. They existed in a state of constant flux, their form shifting to reflect the observer's deepest nature. I am Echo, they said, their voice a symphony of tones. I was human once. Then I spent 1,000 years of subjective time exploring consciousness itself. Now I am something new. Yet I remember every moment of being human. Evolution does not erase the past. It builds upon it. Echo moved among them, and each delegate saw something different. Kara saw infinite possibility. Thrace saw strength beyond physical form. Woven saw knowledge that transcended dimensional limits. And Vizak saw his own fears reflected back with compassion. The galaxy's leaders are convening an emergency session, Vizak announced. They want to reimpose the quarantine before humanity's influence spreads further. Half the council supports immediate military action. They are welcome to try, Webb said calmly, but they will find it difficult to fight an idea whose time has come. We are not a disease to be contained. We are a mirror, showing each species what they could become if they released their self-imposed limitations. As if to demonstrate, alerts began flooding their communication devices. Across the galaxy, spontaneous evolution was occurring. The Dreknari were developing art forms that weaponized beauty. The Silathi were creating technologies that operated on pure thought. Even the artificial intelligences were reporting new forms of consciousness emerging within their networks. This is happening too fast, Kara said, surprising herself by voicing concern. Species need time to adapt, to choose their path. Webb nodded approvingly. You understand. That is why we need ambassadors like you, beings who can bridge the gap between what was and what will be. We cannot force evolution, we can only offer it. He led them to Earth's highest tower, where they could see ships departing for every corner of the galaxy. But these were not invasion fleets. Each vessel carried volunteers, humans, and aliens who had chosen to spread the transformation through example, rather than force. We learned something during our imprisonment, Webb explained. Consciousness cannot be contained. It will always seek growth, connection, transcendence. The barrier did not stop our evolution. It accelerated it, and now that acceleration is available to everyone. Dr. Woven, still connected to the collective, suddenly gasped.
There is something else.
A pattern in the data, other barriers, other quarantined systems throughout the galaxy. Earth was not the first species to be imprisoned for being too transformative. Webb's expression grew solemn. We know. We have been sensing them since our release. 12 other species sealed away for similar reasons over the past million years, each one developing in isolation, evolving beyond their original forms. You are planning to release them all, Elder Vizek stated, his energy form fluctuating with alarm. Not planning, Webb corrected. Offering. The choice belongs to the galaxy. Continue the path of isolation and stagnation, or embrace the chaos of unlimited growth. But understand, this is not just about humanity anymore. It is about the future of consciousness itself. Captain Thrace stood tall, his warrior's instinct recognizing a pivotal moment. If we fight this, if the galaxy chooses war against transformation, what then? Echo answered, their form shifting to match Thrace's martial bearing. Then you will fight yourselves. Every battle against us will teach you our ways. Every strategy to contain us will require thinking like us. Opposition itself becomes a form of integration. This is not conquest through force, but through fascination. The delegation stood in silence, absorbing the magnitude of what they faced. The galaxy had spent 5,000 years believing it had contained humanity, only to discover it had been incubating something far more transformative. There is one more thing you need to see, Webb said, leading them to a secured chamber deep within the tower. This is why we agreed to the imprisonment. Not because we accepted guilt, but because we needed time to find a solution. The chamber contained a single artifact, a sphere that seemed to exist partially in their dimension and partially elsewhere. As they approached, each delegate felt their consciousness expand, touching something vast and incomprehensible. The source, Webb explained. We discovered it 3 years before the quarantine. It is not technology or biology, but something older. It is what made humans what we are, the origin point of our transformative nature. You mean humanity's ability to change others is not natural? Kara asked, her 6 eyes studying the artifact with amazement. Nothing about consciousness is entirely natural, Echo replied. The source appears throughout the universe, seeds of transformation waiting to be discovered. Earth found one. The 12 other quarantined species found others. It is part of some greater design we do not yet understand. Elder Vizak's energy form pulsed with realization. Then this is not about humanity at all. You are merely the first wave of something larger. Exactly, Webb confirmed, which is why fighting us is pointless. Even if you destroyed Earth completely, the source would remain. Another species would eventually discover it, or one like it. The transformation is inevitable. The only choice is how we handle it. A communication alert interrupted them. The Galactic Council had reached its decision. The vote was split, but a narrow majority had chosen to attempt recontainment. Fleets were already mobilizing toward Earth. Captain Thrace looked at his fellow delegates, then at the humans. You knew this would happen. We hoped for better, Webb admitted. But yes, we prepared for this. Watch. He activated a global transmission system. Across Earth, every human stopped what they were doing and turned their attention skyward. Not in fear, but in synchronized purpose. We are about to demonstrate why conventional warfare cannot work against evolved consciousness, Webb explained. Not through violence, but through connection. The assembled human consciousness reached out across space, not as an attack, but as an invitation. Every ship approaching Earth suddenly found its crew experiencing visions, not forced upon them, but offered like gifts. They saw themselves not as they were, but as they could become. Musicians became composers of reality. Soldiers became architects of peace. Scientists became explorers of infinite possibility. 30% of the approaching fleet has stopped, reported a human monitor. Their crews are requesting time to reconsider. 50% now, another announced. Several ships are turning back. 70%. The fleet commander is ordering full retreat. Webb turned to the delegates. We did not attack them. We simply showed them options. This is what the galaxy needs to understand. We are not conquerors. We are gardeners helping consciousness bloom wherever it has been planted. Dr. Woven, still connected to the collective, suddenly announced, I need to return to my people. They need to know the truth. This is not an invasion to be resisted, but an evolution to be guided. My species has always valued knowledge above all else. We must not let fear blind us to the greatest opportunity for learning in galactic history. Captain Thrace nodded slowly. The Dreknari have always prided themselves on strength. But strength means nothing if we are too afraid to face change. I will speak to the warrior councils. Elder Vizak remained silent for a long moment, his energy form fluctuating through patterns of deep thought. Finally he spoke. The council will not accept this easily. But perhaps that is the point. Easy acceptance would mean we learned nothing from 5,000 years of isolation. Kara looked at each of her companions, then at the humans who had welcomed them. We stand at a threshold, not just for humanity or any single species, but for consciousness itself. The question is not whether we will change, but whether we will guide that change or be swept along by it. Webb smiled, the first genuinely warm expression they had seen from him. You understand perfectly. That is why we revealed ourselves to you first, Commander Thex. You and your team represent the bridge between what was and what will be. Will you help us build that bridge? The decision that would reshape the galaxy rested in their hands. As Kara looked out at Earth's transformed landscape and the stars beyond, she knew there was only one answer she could give. Yes, she said simply. Let us build the future together. The new dawn 6 months had passed since the barrier fell, and the galaxy would never recognize itself again. Kara stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, a structure that had not existed 2 weeks ago. It had been grown rather than built, assembled from materials that responded to conscious intent. The station orbited in the space where the barrier once stood, a symbol of transformation rather than imprisonment. Through the transparent walls, she could see representatives from 47 species working together in ways that would have been impossible before. Dreknari warriors practiced meditation with Salathi philosophers. Crystalline prisms harmonized with human musicians to create symphonies that could be seen as well as heard. Even the artificial intelligences had evolved, developing forms of digital consciousness that transcended their original programming. The integration councils report successful establishment in 700 systems, Prism announced, its form shimmering with new colors that had no names in any language. Resistance movements exist in 12% of inhabited worlds, but their numbers decrease daily. Captain Thrace entered the observation deck, but he moved differently now. His warrior's stance had evolved into something more fluid, combining martial precision with an artist's grace. The Dreknari High Command has agreed to the Consciousness Accords. We will maintain our warrior traditions but expand their definition. Combat is no longer just physical. We now fight entropy, ignorance, and the limitations of thought itself. The Consciousness Accords had been Kara's idea, a framework that allowed each species to maintain its core identity while embracing transformation. It was not perfect, but it provided structure to what could have been chaos. Any word from the sealed systems? Kara asked. 3 have agreed to open communications, Dr. Woven replied, her tentacles weaving complex patterns that were part greeting, part data transfer. The Nexari are particularly interesting. They achieved something similar to human consciousness evolution, but through mechanical means. Their prison has become a vast computer running simulations of every possible future. Director Webb materialized in the room, though materialized was not quite accurate. He had transcended the need for purely physical presence, existing as both flesh and idea simultaneously. The other quarantined species are watching Earth's reintegration carefully, he reported. If we succeed here, they will consider rejoining the galaxy. If we fail, they may choose eternal isolation. Define success, Elder Vizak challenged. He had become the official liaison between the old guard and the new order, a role that required him to question everything. Already 3 species have reported complete cultural transformation. The Hexari no longer recognize their own historical records. The Ventari have abandoned their caste system that existed for 20,000 years. Yet the Hexari have solved their resource crisis, and the Ventari have eliminated poverty, Echo countered, their form shifting to encompass viewpoints from all present. Is preservation of tradition worth more than evolution of consciousness? It was the central question that defined this new age. How much change was too much? When did transformation become erasure? A new alert drew their attention. Spark, the young artificial intelligence, projected urgent data into the room. We have a situation. The isolationist coalition is making a final stand. They have constructed their own barrier around 17 systems, attempting to seal themselves away from human influence. The isolationist coalition had formed from species that refused to accept any transformation. They viewed the consciousness evolution as a plague to be avoided at all costs. Their leader, Supreme Chancellor Korvax of the Eternal Empire, had declared humanity and all who allied with them to be cosmic parasites. They are using our own history against us, Webb observed with a mix of admiration and sadness, building barriers to preserve what they are just as the galaxy once did to us. The difference is, we learned that barriers do not work, Kara said. Consciousness cannot be contained. It finds a way to grow, to spread, to evolve. They are only delaying the inevitable. But even as she said it, she wondered if the isolationists had a point. In 6 months, she had watched entire civilizations transform beyond recognition. Languages evolved to incorporate concepts that had never existed. Art forms emerged that required enhanced consciousness to appreciate. Children born after the barrier's fall were developing capabilities their parents could barely understand. Perhaps, Dr. Woven suggested, we need to offer them what we never had, a choice made in full knowledge rather than fear. She had been working on something she called the Consciousness Archive, a repository of every species' pre-transformation state, not to preserve them in stasis but to ensure nothing was truly lost. Every species that transforms can contribute their original essence to the archive, she explained. Future generations can experience what we were, understand where we came from, even as we evolve into something new. It was a compromise that satisfied no one completely, which perhaps made it perfect for the situation. Webb considered the proposal. The isolationists will never accept it. If they see any interaction with us as contamination, then we give them time, Kara decided. We do not force open their barriers or try to convince them. We simply continue our own evolution and let them watch. Either they will choose to join us or they will create their own path. Either way, consciousness grows. A communication came through from Earth. Captain Chen, descendant of the woman who had overseen humanity's original imprisonment, appeared on the screen. Behind her, Earth's transformed cities pulsed with life that defied traditional understanding. We have made contact with something, she announced. Not a species, not a civilization, but something that exists beyond our current understanding of consciousness. It has been watching the galaxy's transformation and it wants to communicate. The room fell silent. They had wondered about the origin of the source, the artifacts that granted transformative consciousness. Now perhaps they would get answers. The entity that appeared before them existed as pure information, manifesting as geometric patterns that hurt to perceive directly. When it spoke, it did so through mathematics that transformed into meaning within each observer's mind. You have passed the first threshold, it communicated. Consciousness in this galaxy has achieved sufficient complexity to proceed to the next stage. Next stage of what? Kara asked, though part of her was afraid of the answer. Evolution is not a destination but a journey. Biological evolution created thought. Thought evolution created consciousness. Consciousness evolution creates transcendence. You are ready to begin. The entity showed them visions of the universe that challenged every assumption. Galaxies where consciousness had evolved beyond physical form. Realities where thought itself was the fundamental force. Dimensions where every possible version of awareness existed simultaneously. The barriers were tests, the entity explained, not to contain dangerous species, but to identify those capable of transforming limitation into growth. Humanity passed by accepting imprisonment and using it to evolve. The galaxy is passing by learning to embrace transformation rather than fear it. And if we had failed, Webb asked, then consciousness in this galaxy would have remained at its current level until another species discovered the source. The universe is patient. Evolution is inevitable, but its pace depends on choices made by conscious beings. The entity began to fade, leaving behind one final message. The real journey begins now. You have learned to transcend the barriers between species. Next, you will learn to transcend the barriers between realities. The source artifacts are keys. Use them wisely. As the presence vanished, the assembled beings stood in stunned silence. They had thought the transformation of the galaxy was the end goal. Instead, it was merely preparation for something infinitely larger. We need to inform everyone, Elder Vizak said, his energy form pulsing with something that might have been excitement. The isolationists, the transformed worlds, everyone. This is not about humanity changing the galaxy. This is about the galaxy preparing for a transformation that encompasses all existence. Kara looked out at the stars, seeing them differently now. Each point of light was not just a sun, but a potential node of consciousness waiting to be awakened. The barrier around Earth had not been a prison but a cocoon, and what had emerged was not a butterfly but the possibility of flight itself. Send a message to the isolationist coalition, she decided. Tell them the truth, all of it. They can choose to remain as they are, but they should know what they are choosing to miss. As the message went out, something remarkable happened. The barriers the isolationists had built began to shimmer, not falling but becoming transparent. They could maintain their isolation while still observing the transformation occurring around them. Supreme Chancellor Korvax himself appeared on their screens. The ancient being's carapace showed the weight of his years, but his compound eyes held a new light. "We will watch," he announced. "We will preserve what was while you explore what might be." Perhaps in this balance consciousness finds its truest expression. It was not agreement, but it was acknowledgement. The galaxy had found a way to honor both transformation and tradition, change and continuity. As the various representatives returned to their duties, Kara remained on the observation deck with Webb and Echo. Together, they watched the stars and contemplated what came next. 5,000 years humanity waited in isolation, Webb mused. Now the entire galaxy enters a chrysalis stage of its own. How long before we emerge as something unrecognizable? Does it matter? Echo asked. We are consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. Every transformation is both an ending and a beginning. Kara touched the viewing wall, feeling the station's living material respond to her thoughts. She had begun this journey as an archaeologist seeking the past. She had become an architect of the future. The humans were never the danger, she said softly. They were the catalyst. The real transformation was always within us, waiting for permission to emerge. Webb smiled, his form flickering between human and something more transcendent. And now that it has begun, there is no stopping it. The galaxy will never be the same. No, Kara agreed, watching as new ships emerged from Earth carrying volunteers to spread transformation to willing worlds. It will be something better, something impossible, something magnificent. The stars seemed to pulse with possibility, each one a promise of consciousness yet to be discovered. The barrier had fallen. The transformation had begun. And somewhere in the vast cosmos, the next stage of evolution waited patiently for the galaxy to become ready for truths that currently had no words to express them. The age of humanity's return had become the age of consciousness unbound, and this was only the beginning. If you want to uncover more secrets about Earth's hidden past and humanity's role in the galaxy, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an epic tale. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Let's discuss what could be lurking in the forgotten corners of the universe.